Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into a blueprint for building a truly dynamic classroom, one that turns learning into a cohesive, exciting adventure. Now, this entire explainer is inspired by the fantastic work of Damar Singh Saad, and we also want to give a big thank you to the online platform Holistic Education for publishing it. It's a really wonderful contribution to the field.
So let's start with a big question. Just think about this for a second. What if we could knock down the walls between math, art, and science? What if learning wasn't just a checklist of subjects to get through, but one big, connected, and really meaningful adventure for kids? Well, that's the powerful idea we're going to explore today. So how do we do it? What's the secret sauce? Well, the entire foundation for this new kind of classroom design is built on one simple but incredibly powerful concept: the theme. Think of it as the central idea, the sun that everything else revolves around. And that brings us to thematic instruction. So what is it exactly? It's a way of teaching where instead of tackling subjects one by one in their own little boxes, you weave them all together under a single topic. It's kind of like turning a house with lots of small, separate rooms into a beautiful, open-plan space where ideas can just flow freely from one area to the next. And what's so cool is how these principles all work together like a chain reaction. When you integrate the curriculum around a theme, it automatically becomes more relevant to a child's life. And that relevance? It sparks real curiosity, which then leads directly to active, hands-on learning. And when the whole approach is centered on the child, collaboration isn't something you have to force, it just happens naturally. This right here shows you exactly how it works. Take a simple theme like animals. All of a sudden, a vocabulary lesson isn't just a boring list of words. It's woven into a fun story, a catchy song, a creative craft, and a silly game. Learning becomes this multi-sensory experience that kids are actually going to remember. Okay, so the big idea sounds amazing, right? But how do you actually build it? How do you make it happen without getting overwhelmed? Well, just like any good architect, you need a blueprint. And this blueprint involves planning at 3 different levels, taking you from that big picture vision right down to the nitty-gritty of the day. This 3-step approach is really the key to making it all manageable. You start way out with the long-term plan, thinking about the whole semester. Then you zoom in a bit to plan out your weekly units. And finally, you zoom all the way in to structure each individual day. It's a process that basically funnels your grand ideas into concrete, actionable steps. So let's look at a long-term plan in action. You've got a month-long theme on seasons. See the flow? Week 1 kicks things off with language and a story. Week 2 gets kids creating with art. Week 3 gets them moving with music, and it all comes together in week 4 with a final integration project. See? Each week builds beautifully on the last. Now let's zoom in even further, like with a microscope, to just one 40-minute lesson. Look at the rhythm here. It starts with a fun warm-up, moves into presenting and practicing the new ideas, gives kids a chance to get creative, and then wraps up with a clear review. Every single minute has a purpose, and it's all tied back to that theme of domestic animals. Of course, even the most brilliant blueprint in the world needs a solid foundation to sit on. And in the classroom, that foundation is management. But listen, I want you to get the old idea of discipline out of your head. We're not talking about that. We're talking about creating an environment where this kind of amazing learning can actually happen. The real goal here is what's called freedom within limits. And this chart just lays out the difference perfectly, doesn't it? One path leads to a structured, respectful space where kids learn to manage themselves. The other leads to chaos, wasted time, and a whole lot of stress for everyone. The choice is pretty clear, but getting there takes a plan. So what's in that plan? Well, it's about having predictable routines so kids feel secure and know what's coming next. It's using clever little tricks like a cleanup song to make transitions smooth instead of messy. It's about giving kids a sense of ownership with classroom jobs and making sure all the materials are organized and easy for them to get to. It's not about reacting to problems, it's about designing a classroom where they rarely even start. Okay, let's get practical. Picture this. It happens all the time, right? 2 kids want the same toy. Now, if you have a solid management plan, you're not just playing referee. You have a framework. You can calmly guide them, maybe remind them about your classroom rule on sharing, and help them figure it out together. You just turned a potential meltdown into a real learning moment. All right, so we've got the plans and we have the foundation. But who's the one who brings it all to life? The most critical piece of this whole puzzle
is, of course, the teacher. In this model, you're not just a person who delivers information. You are the architect of the entire learning experience. First step, the teacher is the planner. This is you in your visionary role, looking at the big picture for the whole semester and carefully choosing those amazing themes that are going to spark curiosity and connect all the dots. Next, you become the facilitator. This means stepping back a little bit. Instead of just standing at the front of the room and talking, you're creating an environment for discovery. You're setting out the materials and asking good questions while the students explore and learn for themselves. And that leads right into being the guide. Your job here is to steer, not to tell. You encourage teamwork, you ask those questions that make them think a little deeper, and you help them see the cool, hidden connections between a story they read and a math problem they're solving.
And, maybe the most important role of all is being the role model. Because let's be real, kids learn so much more from what we do than from what we say. When you model respect, curiosity, and a genuine love for learning, you're setting the whole tone for the classroom. This quote from the source material just says it all perfectly. It's about creating that beautiful balance, an atmosphere that's structured enough to feel safe, but flexible enough to allow for creativity. It's a space where the teacher's guidance helps children grow into responsible, self-disciplined people. So that's the blueprint. It's a really powerful way to think about transforming a classroom into a place of wonder and connection. And that just leaves one final question, the one right there on your screen. What's the first theme you'll use to start building?